All right. So I'm sitting around waiting for good loads. I've been setting for like 4 days, and I'm gonna give it one more day because I had to set through the weekend. There are not new loads posted on the weekend. So somebody requested Montgomery, Alabama loads. So I'm gonna tell a story while I scroll through the Montgomery load board. Now, I'm going to give you a rough idea of Montgomery. So, this person that's asking is moving over to lease with USA Truck. I don't know if they're already an owner operator or if they're just becoming an owner operator for the first time, but they said that in a couple of weeks they're going to lease on with USA Truck. And they were curious what the Montgomery area was like, what it was like coming out of Montgomery, getting loads out of Montgomery. So, it's good. I'm going to tell you right now that right now the load board sucks. This is a USA Truck thing. It would take me hours to explain the USA Truck load board, but since there aren't new loads put on the weekend, Monday is a real shit show. There are a lot of loads put on the load board on Monday, but there are a lot of drivers looking for loads on Monday, so they disappear real quickly. So because of that, they don't put them up at really good rates. So Monday is kind of a crap day to get loads. So what you're going to see on the load board is not representative of how good this market actually is because you're 100 something miles away from Atlanta in Montgomery, Alabama. Mobile, Alabama is within range of you. Birmingham. I mean, you have some really solid markets near Montgomery, Alabama. Montgomery itself, I don't think is a hot freight hub, but you're really close to some places where you can pick up some freight. And there's like 3 distribution centers. If I search delivery location Montgomery, Alabama, you have a Dollar General distribution center, a Walmart distribution center, and Value Plus or some kind of grocery distribution center, something value. So looks like it should be pretty easy to get to and from Montgomery, Alabama. So I'll just do a search by 250 miles around Montgomery. This is 100 miles around Montgomery. And let's, real quick, let's take out all these filters and I'll show you 50 miles and then 100 miles. That's 50 miles. That's every load within 50 miles. There's only one load directly out of Montgomery, Alabama. And it pays crap. 100 miles. This is a paper plant that you never want to pull loads out of. It's out in the middle of nowhere. You have to drive some windy ass 2-lane roads. They're always going to be max weight loads and they pay crap. It's not worth picking up. It's International Paper plant in Pine Hill, Alabama. You never want to pull loads out of that place. But this is everything within 100 miles. Now I'm going to do 250 miles and I'll just scroll it while I tell a story. So, my Nissan, let me try to remember. It was an 86, it was a red 86 Nissan 200SX hatchback. Now, right after I graduated high school, I'm gonna tell you about my first car that I ever owned that actually ran. Now, the first car I ever owned never ran. I was planning on fixing it up, and it was just more than I thought. Like, I didn't realize how much was going to go into it, and it was a foreign car that was hard to find parts for. But anyway, first car I ever owned that ran. How did I acquire this car? So, a friend of mine, his sister, had this car. And the first time I ever saw this car was we were going over. It wasn't his sister, it was his brother's girlfriend. So, a friend's brother's girlfriend, we drove to downtown Oklahoma City where she worked to help get her car started because she always had problems with it. And we basically had to go there and push start the car. It was a manual, but we eventually got it started. I owned that car within the next month. I don't know what I was thinking. I was desperate for a car. I didn't have any credit, didn't have any money to put down or anything, and they were willing to let me make payments. And I think I only paid something like $1,200 for the car. I think it was $200 a month for 6 months. There's a whole other story with how crazy the people were that I bought the car from. My buddy's brother was he's just batshit crazy, and his girlfriend's batshit crazy as well. And they harassed me over the payments. Like they were on drugs and broke all the time and everything. And they would come up to me and like 2 or 3 weeks before it was due and be threatening me to pay them early because like I was the only thing they could think of to make their bills was to come and threaten me. And I typically paid them early because I had the money, but I was really glad to be paid off and not have to deal with them anymore. But anyway, 86 Nissan 200 SX hatchback had the little flipper lights up the front, and one of them didn't open up right, so it's just um, nothing really worked right on that car. So I have quite a few good stories. I'll tell you two stories. Um, I'll tell you the story of how it died, and I'll tell you the story about me getting hired as a vacuum salesman. So right out of high school, I was making close to minimum wage, and I was looking for anything that I could find. I didn't have a skill of any kind. I was a high school graduate, and that was it. And they had an ad in the paper, which I'm sure they still have these ads in the paper. $2,000 a month guaranteed. And back then, that was quite a bit of money. To me, at least, it was a lot more than I was making. So I applied, and I went down to their orientation. That was really all there was to it. Was you apply, and then you went down to orientation. And they basically called me up and said, yeah, start orientation. The orientation was also kind of a selection process, they said. I don't know. They were very vague about everything. Um, and I got down there, and they brought us in, and they only had like 3 of us that showed up. And what it was some guy that was teaching us how to sell vacuums. And they said, we've only got 2 rules to hire you. Basically, the way the thing was set up was that they said, this is commission based, but we guarantee for your first 2 months or 3 months that you're going to make at least $2,000 a month because you get commission. It was like a pyramid scheme. So I got a small percentage of the commission. The guy that brought me in got a chunk of what I made, and the guy that brought him in got a chunk of it, and so on, so forth, etc. And the longer I'm there, the bigger piece of the pie I get, and the people that I bring in get But they were selling the vacuums. I think they were the rainbow vacuums. I can't remember. They're the ones that you have water in them, and you can put scents in them and stuff. Anyway, um, they they sold them for crazy amounts of money. They were like, I don't know, $3,000 for a vacuum, and I think they were so expensive because everyone was taking such a big piece of the pie on them. The salespeople made crazy money on them. But anyway, they only had 2 requirements. They said, um, well, let me finish what I was saying about pay. So they guaranteed that I would make at least $2,000 a month for my first 3 months if I went to all the sales appointments they made for me. And then after that, it was purely commission based. But they said that I would most likely make a lot more than $2,000 a month, even in my first month. They had two rules to be hired on there. Number one is that you're on time for appointments, and number two, that you have a reliable vehicle. So number one, they said on time for appointments. I was like, all right, I got this, I got this. And then they said the thing about the reliable vehicle, and I just started like sweating, and I was freaking out. But I'm an all in kind of person. This is a huge pay increase for me on money, and, and I was like, I got to make this. I got to make this happen. Um, and so I went through the orientation all day long, and man, I was just he was teaching you how to sell. He was teaching you the difference between selling to a man and a woman. He was like, you know, get them to say yes to something or anything, and he was teaching a whole bunch of sales tactics. Touch them. You touch them. It creates it's hard for somebody to say no or be rude to somebody when they're being personable with them. So he said it's very important that they be personable with you, and it is basically the whole sales thing was about creating a personal relationship with them uh, to get them to where they won't say no. And we went through the whole training all day long, and I think we had 2 or 3 days total of training that we were supposed to go through. And there were like three people at this little building that they had rented out. They had a small little building they had rented out or leased out or whatever that they were doing this out of, and there were like three people working there, and one of them was the guy that was training us. And they would keep taking smoke breaks. They were really heavy smokers. And then we finally ended the day, and it's time to go home. And they all they all went to the back of the building to smoke like they had been doing all day long on every one of their breaks. And the three students or trainees or whatever, we all went to leave. And I've got my '86 Nissan 200SX hatchback out there. Now, my car, the starter, like the starter worked on it, but there was some type of ignition issue that I wasn't 100% sure what the problem was at the time, but it was really hard to start the car. I almost always had to push start the car. And because of that, it affected where and how I parked. Like I wouldn't park in a spot that was like facing downhill because I would have to push the car out of that spot. So I always tried to park in a spot where I could roll out of it and go downhill and push start it. Um, and the way that this place was set up, you parked behind the building. So I got out there and I tried to start the car. Mind you, these three guys um, were all about 30 feet away from me. It was a really small building, a really small parking lot. The other two students had already left, and I cranked it and cranked it and cranked it for probably about 2 minutes, and I couldn't get it to start. And I was like, shit, I'm going to have to push start it. And I kept waiting. And I was just waiting for these guys to go back inside, and they wouldn't go back inside. They wanted to see, like, the show. They were just sitting there waiting to see what would happen. And I had to get to work. I had about an hour before I had to go to my normal job. So I couldn't sit around and wait for too terribly long. so so I get out and I push it out of the spot and I push it all the way to the back of their parking lot, and I push in the car and I'm pushing the car and I'm pushing the car and I hop in there and I pop the clutch. It just died. So I pushed it all the way back to the back of the parking lot again. And this is the middle of summer in Oklahoma. It's like 110 degrees outside. I'm sweating my ass off. These guys are back there smoking and laughing so hard that they like can't smoke. They like can't catch their breath. I mean, they're just laughing so fucking hard. Um, it took me like 3 attempts of pushing that car back and forth in the parking lot before I finally got the damn thing to start. And I just took off and went to work. And I never went back to day 2 of training. um, oh man, I'm glad I didn't though, because like that kind of sales job, I would not have done well at that. Um, so that's story number one with my '86 Nissan 200SX. Let's sort these by let's see if there's anything over 2 grand. Story number two: how the car died. So because I had issues with the car, it ends up the issues with the car not starting properly had to do with the distributor cap. I found this out after the car died, because I had issues getting it started, and I took it to a mechanic, and they said, "Do you want it fixed properly, or do you want it fixed?" And I said, "What's the difference?" They said, "Money." They said, "We can get it to where it'll start. It's not going to be fixing it properly, but we can get it to where it'll start and it'll run for like $150." They said to get it, fixed properly would I don't know. They said it would be a lot more. I don't remember the exact price. But I was like, man, I can't afford much more than $150. So we did the $150. And they never told me what they did to fix it. The next mechanic did. So after that fix, it finally started like starting for me. Like it ran really poorly. It was still a pain in the ass to start, but it would start. Like it wouldn't start at all up to that point. So, um, because of all these issues with the car, I would leave for work like 2 hours early, just in case I had an issue starting the car, or it broke down on the way there. I could call somebody and have them take me to work or something. I would always leave like at least 2 hours early for work. And part of my routine was to back road it. I always took back roads. I didn't trust it on the interstate or on busy roads or anything, so I always back roaded it. So here I am back roading it to work, and I come up on this stop sign, and I'm gonna make a left at this stop sign, and I'm gonna grab some Long John Silver's to eat while when I get to work like 2 hours early. I'm gonna sit there and eat my Long John Silver's while I wait for my shift to start. And I stop at this stoplight, and there's like 3 other cars there. It's my turn, and I pull out and I start turning left. And as I'm giving it throttle to turn left, you just heard this loud bang, like somebody shot a shotgun off behind my head. And then everything just went black. Um, what had happened was my car backfired really, really, really badly, really loud, and it was just pitch black smoke that came out of there. Soot, just black, so black that it was just like nighttime around the car. And that cloud went over my car and then kept drifting. The car died, of course, when that happened, and I just rolled to a stop shortly past that intersection. To give you an idea of how bad the backfire was, there were 2 people that came over to check and make sure I was okay. Um, 2 of the other people at that intersection pulled over to check to make sure I was all right. They thought the car had like blown up or something and caught fire. Um, man, so I pushed it on down the road. I was only probably a couple hundred yards from the Long John Silver's. So I pushed it on down to the Long John Silver's parking lot and parked it in there. And I eventually got it towed to a mechanic. So here's a bonus story. Um, what the mechanic told me after like 2 weeks of trying to figure out what in the hell was wrong with my car. They said there was a lot of stuff wrong with my car, but they said that, just trying to get it to run, they were trying to track down all the problems. Basically, after 2 weeks of, trying to track down all the problems, they finally figured out what happened. They said that my original problem was I might have had a bad injector or two, but my main problem was my distributor cap. Like two of the lights were out on my distributor cap, and that was causing it to misfire. That was making it hard to start. That was giving it a rough idle where it would die all the time. It was hard to start, hard to run. It would, I had to keep giving it throttle to keep it running and stuff. And it was because I had at least two lights out on my distributor cap. And they said that what the shop did, the muffler shop that worked on my car that made it work to, they said that what they did was they got some grease or something and put it around I think the spark plugs to make them like fire harder or something like that. Um, and they did something to the spark plugs to make them like fire harder. And they fired way too damn hard, and that was basically what the backfire was it my engine basically blew up. It blew out all my injectors. So my distributor cap was initially bad, and then when it backfired and blew up, it cracked the manifold, or damaged it in some way where the manifold had to be replaced, all my injectors had to be replaced, and the distributor cap needed to be replaced. Um, yeah, so if a mechanic ever asked you, do you want it fixed or do you want it to work? Don't ever take the cheap solution because you might just blow up your whole damn car. But yeah, that's my story on my '86 Nissan 200SX. Oh my goodness, what happened to that car? I ended up getting a roommate that had a much more reliable car, and we worked at the same place and we worked the same shift, so we just carpooled in his car to work. And I stopped driving that car for like a year, and then I ended up selling it to somebody for $75. Oh my goodness, man, the memories. I almost ran over a cop in that car because the clutch didn't work in it. I, it had a lot of issues. Like the clutch did not work in it, and I had to float the gears to get it going from a dead stop. What I would do is I would just hold it in first gear, not all the way in first gear. I would just hold it up against the gear, and it would sit there and vibrate and grind. But it would catch enough of the gear that it would slowly start rolling. And once it started rolling a little bit, I would pull it back and then jam it into first. And it would jerk around, and and then I'd start rolling. And then from then on, I could just float the gears through there. Um, and I got really good at floating gears. But I could never get the car started from an incline. So if I ever rolled up on a stop sign or a stoplight that was on an incline, I would just roll from way far back because if I ever came to a stop, I wasn't going to get the car going again. Um, and I did that, and I came up, and I was rolling up to a stop sign, and it was a four-way stop, and I didn't want to come to a complete stop, and this damn cop, it was my turn to go, but I didn't come to a complete stop, so technically it wasn't my turn to go, and I started rolling up there, and I was basically going to do a California roll, and I came up to it. He came to a complete stop, and then I started giving it throttle, and as soon as I started giving it throttle, he started pulling out, and I nearly sideswiped him. Like, I pulled right out in front of him and just, like, almost hit his ass and kept rolling. He didn't pull me over or anything. Um, but, man, I have a lot of stories on that damn car. That thing was a nightmare. I am so glad that. Oh my God, I'm so glad that I am not living that life anymore. I mean, I think your younger years, we all look back on them, and there are things that were nice about them, and things that we miss, and things we. I don't want to relive my childhood, but it holds a special place of nostalgia, no matter how good or bad it was. But oh my goodness, I can't believe I made it through all that. So anyway, there's the story of my '86 Nissan 200SX and the Montgomery area on the load board. Um, I'll give you a tip, my suggestion on the load board, and then I'll tell you what's going on with me on what the hell am I doing. Um, on the load board, look at the load board as often as you can to try to get familiar with it. If you're going to be any good at picking loads off the load board, you need to know what a good load is and what a bad load is. And the loads on USA Trucks load board are not going to be the same as the spot market or the same as anywhere else. You need to get familiar with what's good and what's bad and what's normal and what's not normal on USA Trucks load board. And looking at the load board all the time is what's going to give you that information. Um, so that's my tip. So what's going on with me? Um, don't go to Pennsylvania. I keep telling everybody, don't go to Pennsylvania, and I keep going to Pennsylvania. Do what I say, not what I do. So there are two ways that I go to Pennsylvania. Number one, the load just pays insane money, and it makes it worth it to go. Number two is I have a back haul before I leave for Pennsylvania. This time, the load just paid crazy money. It was a load going from Tulsa to Mechanicsburg. It was like 1,200 mile load, paying $5,700. It was like $5 a mile load. It was 1,161 miles, paying $5,700. I made $4 grand off the load. So that made it worth it to come up here. I didn't come up here with a backhaul, and I looked for a backhaul all week long, and I never found one. And then we hit the weekend, and they don't post new loads on the weekend. There was one new load posted on the weekend. It was an okay load, not a very good load, and I decided not to get it. Um, and I'm still waiting on a load. Mondays are really bad days for loads because there's so many people looking for loads because of the weekend. So I looked all day today for a load. Nothing came up. So I'm waiting till tomorrow. I did put a trip plan together where I could have picked up a load in the morning out of somewhere in West Virginia. I forgot the name of the town. Take that to Nashville, and then deadhead down to Montgomery, Alabama. Pick up that load that you saw on the load board out of Eclectic, going to Oklahoma City. This one right here. And I was going to pick that load up and take that to Oklahoma City. It would have taken up approximately 5 days, and I would have made 20. Well, the truck would have made $2,600 after fuel and everything. I might have maybe made $2,000, maybe 1,800, somewhere in the area of 1,800 to $2,000, and that just didn't seem worth it to me for pretty much a full week. So I'm gonna sit and see if I can't find something better tomorrow. Now tomorrow is the deadline. If I can't find anything, any good loads tomorrow, then unfortunately I'm just gonna have to piece together what I can. Um, because I can't sit here forever, and tomorrow is my best shot at getting a good load. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the best days for good loads being posted. Um, from my experience of watching the load board. Mondays are real crapshoots. The account managers and brokers and people know that they can post things for lower rates on Mondays because everybody's desperate for loads because there wasn't ship posted over the weekend. But occasionally there will be good loads on Monday because they want it to move. So just never know. Just the beginning of the week, the end of the week are not good. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are the best days in my opinion to get loads, to get good paying loads. Um, so we'll see what happens tomorrow. I'm not too thrilled about sitting here camping out at this Flying J. And my APU broke again, so I've been using a ton of fuel idling the truck. I've been sitting here looking at Imager and Reddit and just browsing the web. I haven't even been in the mood to game. Just been sitting here browsing the damn web for like 4 days. So, yeah, that's what's going on. Let's not make this video too terribly long. 31 minutes. But hopefully there'll be a good load to get me the hell out of here tomorrow. Hopefully there's a really badass Chewy.com load that's paying $5,000 or $6,000 going to Dallas from either Wilkes Barre or Cuyahoga Falls. I picked up loads out of both of them. Wilkes Barre is not too terribly far from here. Cuyahoga Falls is a decent drive from here. But as long as I can make the pickup and delivery times and they pay really well, I'll be willing to travel to either one of them. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Like right here's a Cuyahoga Falls to Dallas. This is a Chewy.com load, but it doesn't pick up till October 30th. And it is not a great paying load, but it is a decent paying load. It's a fairly solid load. So this load right here would be better than those two loads that I pieced together, because those two loads I pieced together, it would have been like 2,000 miles and it would have taken me 5 days. This load right here is like a 2-day load and it's only like 1,200 miles. Once you add in the deadhead to Cuyahoga Falls from where I'm at, I'm about 300 miles from there. So it would take basically 2 full days. It would take like 3 full driving shifts to do this load. Well, 3.5 driving, no, 2.5 driving shifts to do this load. So like 2.5 days to do this load. Whereas the other one, yeah, it paid a little bit more, but I can stomach 2.5 days to make, $2,200 or whatever I'm going to make on this load versus 5 days to make $2,600. That 5 days to make $2,600, that's $500 a day. And 2 days to make $2,200, that's $1,100 a day. So this right here is the minimum of what I'm looking for. I'm hoping to get something that's $4,000 or $5,000, but we'll see. We will see what happens tomorrow. I may have to just piece together whatever in the hell I can. So anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good one. Bye.